You wouldn't do this, as most people do when I suggest that they raise their right hand, because that's what you were taught to do. You raise your right hand to the flag. You raise your right hand when you want to ask the teacher to leave the room or you want to ask a question. That's what you do consciously. In hypnosis, however, if I said raise your right hand, your subconscious would just do that. It would take me very literally. It might just do that. But it wouldn't do that. Because what you actually did is you raised your right arm. Your hand just happens to be attached to it. Your conscious mind is programmed. Your subconscious isn't. Your subconscious is very, very literal. That can be dangerous, as you might well figure. So, let's dispense with some of these misconceptions so that you can now develop useful knowledge of yourself and your subconscious. Indeed, you have been raised on a lot of misconceptions, a lot of negatives, if you will. You can use the word programmed. That's up to you. If you like the word, I'll go along. It's familiar to a lot of people. You've been given a lot of shoulds, shouldn'ts, cans, can'ts, do's, don'ts. Right? In fact, you learned, long before you learned what you could do, you learned what you shouldn't do. To describe to some extent, though in an extremely oversimplified way, how these programs operate. Because they operate on psychological, physiological, cybernetic loops, or neurological pathways. I'm going to write that on the blackboard for you. Now, these cybernetic loops, or neurological pathways, function on systems. Systems of concept and accepted belief, and they're reinforced in language, in attitudes, in thoughts, and behaviors. Let me explain what a cybernetic loop is, or a neurological pathway is. It is basically something you have learned to do that you now do automatically. Just think about what that involves. Remember, I'm going to go back over this for a little bit. They are programs that operate on psychological, biological, and physiological systems that we call cybernetic loops or neurological pathways. And they are systems of concept, accepted belief, and they're reinforced in language, they're reinforced in attitudes, thoughts, and behaviors. I'm going to give you a classical example of a negative cybernetic loop, because positive ones we're not going to have any problem with, right? We want to hold on to those. It's the negative ones that we must be concerned with and that we must change. So, let's give you the classic example. Then we get to fear. Memory equals fear, because when we remember something, say for example, I remember I had this experience and I was very unhappy with it. It was frightening to me, or it was uncomfortable, or I hurt in that experience. Now I'm remembering this. So when I remember it, I become fearful if I anticipate it again. So memory equals to fear. Now fear is one of the most powerful human emotions that there is. It's a behavior stopper as well as a behavior activator. Fear. Memory equals fear, and the fear, being a powerful emotion, sets up expectations. Now, expectations, as far as the subconscious is concerned, are intentions, one and the same thing on the subconscious level. Once you expect something to happen, you've literally set yourself up for it. You've got everything, you might say, in gear for this to happen. You're expecting it. And therefore, in part, you've accepted it. And once you've accepted something, it's become part of your belief system. And what you believe is what you function on. Your values, everything is in relation to your acceptance of it. So you accept something, as far as you're concerned, it's true. And in part, here we have word programming. You've accepted it, and therefore you've programmed it. So here's the loop. I remember that something hurt me. I'm afraid it's going to hurt again. I'm expecting it to happen. Therefore, my subconscious believes that I intend it to happen. And in part, I've accepted it as a truth. No questions asked anymore. And in part, I've programmed it. In other words, it's in motion. It's in gear. It's blueprinted.